And welcome to this live book event. So I'm looking forward to meeting a few of you. If you pop your name in the chat box and where you're from, I'll be able to say hello. I'm Julie Fison. I'm the author of One Punch. This is my new novel. It's actually my first novel for adults, so that's what I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about. But I'm going to tell you about One Punch tonight and something about the journey to writing it, because I began by writing books for children and young adults. So this was a very different story for me to tell, and I'm excited to talk to you about it tonight. So hi everyone joining me from all over Australia. Fantastic. Thanks very much for joining me tonight. So let me sum up One Punch for you. It's got a really simple premise. One Punch is the story of a 17-year-old boy who is fighting for his life after he is left on the ground in a coward punch. His mother wants revenge, and the perpetrator's mother will do anything to keep her son from jail. So that's how I've summed up the story. There's two mothers at the center of the tragedy. So the story is written from the point of view of those two mothers. So they're ordinary women facing very extraordinary circumstances. And so the story crosses between each of the mothers, with one chapter and then the other chapter coming from the other mother. So Evie and Yasmin are the two characters in the novel. And hi there, everyone from Wagga and lots of other places, from Brisbane. I know I recognise a couple of people from Brisbane, so very excited to have you on the chat and listening in tonight. So that's great to see you all. So I have written 11 books for children and young adults and a play and various other things, lots of short stories as well as travel stories as well. But this one felt like I had to write it. I had been writing for kids for about 10 years, and then I decided to change tack, mostly because my kids had grown up, and I felt like I'd lost their voices and really wanted to write something for myself, and I wanted to write for my book clubs, and I have two amazing book clubs, so that was easy to imagine the people I was writing for. And at first I kind of had the idea that I would write something fun, a bit like a Hazard River series for mothers going on an adventure and maybe getting lost in the bush, playing karaoke, getting involved in some adventures. But this one kept coming back to me. One Punch kept coming back to me. It's a story that stayed with me. And at first I thought this would make a great TV series. But the problem was I'd never written a TV series. I didn't know how to do it, but I decided to do a 2-day course, and I still didn't really know how to write a TV series. But I did know how to write a novel. So I stuck with that and wrote this novel. And the background to the story comes from my own experience, as most debut novels do, I guess. My son's first year out of high school, he was 2016, so he was just about to start university, and there was a very tragic incident. It didn't happen to my son, but it happened to a boy in Brisbane. He was felled in a coward punch and he died of his injuries, and it was really so sad, and it put all parents on notice, I think, because we all felt that our kids were vulnerable, and they were going out and to nightclubs and that kind of thing, and that I felt like they were vulnerable going out there. So I really wanted to write a story inspired by that. And lots of boys in his community and his school friends and things, I was hearing stories that they were getting assaulted when they went out, just for a Saturday night, getting assaulted and ending up in hospital. And one of his friends was punched in the head, knocked unconscious, and then kicked repeatedly in the face. And it was just so sad. I felt like I had to write something about it. And I took that as the inspiration and then moved the story to the mother's point of view. And it's not just a sad story. it's about choices. It's about the choices we make as mothers and parents, and that's really what I wanted to get into, rather than the story of the boys, because I'd written young adult stories, and I felt like this time I really wanted to write from the point of view of the mothers. So we have a couple of questions coming in. How long, for Sharon Hill, how long did this book take you to write? Well, it took me about a year to write a reasonable draft. So that probably meant several drafts, but I started at the beginning of 2020. Like many other people, I wrote my debut novel during COVID, and I discovered when I started pitching the story to agents and publishers that everyone had written their debut novel during COVID. So I had a lot of competition when I started pitching it. So I spent 2020 writing the book, and because I'd written quite a few books for kids and young adults, I knew the process. And then I started pitching it the following year. And then I actually went to a conference, the CYA conference. I don't know if anyone's ever been involved in that. And I pitched it to 4 publishers and sent off my manuscript, and a firm press got back to me really quickly on that one. Within 2 weeks, jumped on the manuscript and were keen to publish it. So that was very, very exciting. So that was June last year. And then it was released in a week or so ago. So that was a year from a publishing contract to the book being published, which is actually pretty short. So that was really exciting, and I was glad I didn't have to wait for another 2 years, because if you know the publishing industry, it generally works quite slowly and it can be really frustrating, but it's exciting when it happens a bit quicker than that. So hello from Ballarat. The book is on your list to read, so glad to hear that. I've had a great response from mothers, friends of mine, and people who aren't friends of mine, who have really identified with the characters in the book, because it's a moral dilemma. It's a great story for book clubs, and people have reached out and told me how much they, have enjoyed connecting with the characters. And also so many people have told me really sad stories about their nephew being assaulted, or someone else being pushed down the steps, and people with slurred speech. And I'm glad that I wrote it, because I think COVID put the brakes on assaults for a year or more, because nightclubs were closed and people were staying at home, but things are kicking back off again. And it's very scary, and it's very sad. And it's something, it's great that we can all talk about it. So, Joy Bell, your question is, where do I live? I live in Brisbane, and I have 2 young adult sons. And I started writing kids fiction when my sons were sort of 5 and 7. So I wrote an adventure series for them. And then this story, I've come full circle, because it's another story with boys at the center. It's from the point of view of the mothers, but there's definitely young adult boys at the center of it. So my boys have both read the story and really enjoyed it. So it's not just a story for mothers, it's also for fathers, and it's also for sons, it's also for kids. So I live in Brisbane, but I've lived in Hong Kong, and before that the UK, as well as I worked in Albury, my first job. So I've worked all over the place, done a lot of traveling, and actually super excited. I love Queensland, so I'm a bit of a I'm very happy where I am back here now. So halfway through, Danielle is halfway through, loving it. Excellent, thank you very much. Melinda Russell, what part of the book did you find the hardest to write? The hardest to write was definitely the hospital scenes. The bits that I really enjoyed writing were the tuck shop scenes and the book club scenes, because I guess my default position is humor, because I've written a lot of books for kids, and I use a lot of humor to keep them engaged and keep the story going. And those were the easy bits to write because they were fun. But the bits that I did find really difficult, I think, were the bits that the parents would find really difficult. So, I was putting myself in the mind of those two characters, Yasmin and Evie, and like I was living their lives, I felt for a year. So it was, it's very draining, but that was very difficult. And when Yasmin goes to the hospital to see her son in hospital, I poured over that scene for a very long time. I had to do lots of research because I'd never been in the intensive care unit, and it was COVID, so I couldn't actually walk into a COVID into an ICU unit to see what was happening. So I had to rely on other people to, add the detail for me. And luckily I have a neurosurgeon friend who told me told me so many things about neurosurgery, and I feel like if this book doesn't take off, I could probably have a shot at neurosurgery. I found out so much about brain injuries, and did lots of research on the internet and just read some really, really sad stories. And it was, I was in tears reading other people's stories. So, hopefully I take a little bit of that into the novel, because it's a really sad topic and a difficult topic, but it was something I really wanted to tackle. But I also wanted to add in the fun bits of family dynamics and the fun bits of motherhood. So it's not just a really sad story. So thank you for that question, Melinda. Wendy, this is a scary issue. How did you speak to your son about this as he was going into the world? Well, I think when I heard this very tragic story of the boy who was assaulted, he was hit with a king hit a coward punch, and he died of his injuries. I did talk to my boys about it, as I'm sure everyone did. It's like, this can happen. It was so random. It was terrifying because it was so random. It was a gorgeous boy, his whole life ahead of him, just felled out of nowhere, just a really random attack. And, I think you work really hard to impress upon your kids the dangers that are out there, but kids feel like 18-year-olds feel like they're bulletproof. So it's really difficult. It's like, don't drink too much, don't get isolated. These things can happen. And it is, it's a really difficult thing to impress upon kids because they don't think that's ever going to happen to them. And then I was hearing over and over these instances where it was happening all the time, and it's still happening. So it is very difficult, but all you can do is just repeat the message. And as they walk out the door, repeat the message, keep it really short, and remind them all the time. And hopefully it's in their head at the back of their mind when they go out there and they have to make those decisions on their own, which is never ideal when they're drinking. So yeah, some scary nights waiting for kids to come home from nightclubs, etc. And, just waiting for the key in the lock, waiting for the Uber to turn up. And, I know everyone who's got 18, 19-year-olds going out into the world for the first time, going out to bars and nightclubs, they all have that same fear. Jane Tara, am I happy with the cover? I actually really love the cover. It's I think it says a lot about the story. One punch tells you a lot, and I was kind of in two minds about the title. I chose the title. I had worked with the title all the time, but then when it came to it, I thought, it's going to be it sounds really aggressive. It sounds like it's just going to be all about something really, really sad and really, really horrible. And it's more than that. It's more than just a story about that tragic incident. It's the fallout. It's the repercussions as they go through the entire family. And I think the tricky thing for the publisher was to come up with a front cover image, because obviously one punch is like, yeah, let's get a fist on there. And I think it was really difficult for designers to come up with something that was more appealing to an audience of women, but still was true to the title. So I'm glad that we ended up with this, a mother and son, and that's what the story is about, mothers and sons. So I am very happy with the front cover. It's, I like the colors, and it tells you everything you need to know about that story. It's a really tough issue, but it's a story about parenting and the choices we make. So I think it tells you a lot about that. Christine, do I design the covers for my books? I don't. I would love to. I'm such a control freak. I'll just like, I'll just do that. Let me do that as well. See what I come up with. I did have input though. When the cover came back, and I was just like, oh, it's really not what I wanted. And I kind of wanted something with lots of flowers on it and really pretty. And I just love those front covers. When you walk into a bookshop and you see a book with lots of flowers and really pretty things on the cover, that's the one I always want to pick up. But of course, One Punch was really difficult to illustrate with flowers, so that was never going to happen. So there was some movement in there, but yeah, no, I didn't design it. Sue, my son was a victim. It's a parent's worst nightmare when they receive the phone call. I am so sorry to hear that. That's really, that's really, really horrific. And I think we all just are in fear of getting that phone call. And, if you read the book, I'd love to know what you think about it, because I did put a lot of thought into how people might react to it if they'd been in that situation. And I hope I've handled it with sensitivity. I didn't want to exploit other people's grief. But I wanted to highlight the story and highlight the choices that we make. So thanks for sharing that. And I'm really, really sorry to hear that. I hope your son has recovered. I hope he's okay now. Sharon, do I have another book that I'm working on? Yes, I do. I'm under pressure now, and I feel like One Punch, I've seen it on holidays in the Northern Territory. I've seen it going to Tasmania. I've seen it on its way to the UK and on holidays in Greece. But I'm sitting here in Brisbane, and it's quite cold in the evenings at my desk, and I'm working on my next book, because I've just had before the book was launched, I had 2 weeks in the Kimberley, and I had an amazing holiday. So I'm not due a holiday. I actually have to get down and get on with my book, because it's due in October, my manuscript for my second book with a firm press. So it's another book for adults. It's another suburban drama, crime in the suburbs. And it's different characters, completely different story, but it's a similar, it's the same genre. So I hope if you like One Punch, you'll like my next one as well. So I have to get my head down and really work to get that one finished by October. But I have been working on it right up until I came on the Better Reading site tonight. So I'm working hard on it. Thank you for that question, Sharon. Sophie, love the book, Julie. Will it be released in other countries? Fingers crossed. All of my friends in the UK are asking me when it's going to be out in the UK and in other countries. So salespeople at the firm press are definitely working on that. It is available as an ebook or an audiobook. And actually, the narrator who did the audiobook, Felicity Jerd, did an amazing job. So if you like audiobooks, it's out there. Just double check before you download it, because the Apple app has the wrong book loaded right now. No one seems to be able to fix it. Sophie, you know that, because you downloaded you ended up with the wrong file. So really sorry about that. Ended up with a story about Anna Wintour. So hopefully they will be able to sort that out really soon, but you can get it on audiobooks.com, and Felicity Jerd has done an amazing job with the audiobook. So thanks for that, Sophie. Shirley Watts, it's not just 18 and 19-year-olds, sad facts, males especially decide to get physical to express themselves. Absolutely. No, it's very sad. It's very tragic. It's not just 18-year-olds, but those were the kind of focus of my story. So And the book doesn't try and explain male, why men get violent, or why people get violent. It doesn't really try and explain. It just really presents a situation. I think I used to be a journalist, so that's my background. So I feel like I almost presented both sides of the story and then left it for the reader to decide who they would side with and what they would do. What would you do if you were in that situation? And how would you feel? How would you react? So it's really, I think it's a great story for book clubs, because I'm expecting a bit of a debate, and people are coming up and quietly telling me what they would do in that situation. So thank you for that thank you for that comment, because yeah, that's absolutely true. Alison, did you know your ending from the start? I thought I did. I knew where I was going. I had the beginning sorted out. I knew the characters reasonably well, and then I came up with an ending. And my publisher wasn't quite so excited about my ending as I was. But I have to say that having written 11 books for kids and young adults, I don't think a single ending has stayed the way I wrote it in the manuscript. So I think it happens. I think it happens. And I'll leave it for you to decide if you think the ending was the right one. I think it's a good ending. I think it's anyway, I don't want to give you any spoilers. I'd love to hear back, even quietly, what you thought of the ending. Rosie, what was it like switching between the perspectives of Yasmin and Evie while writing? I loved doing that, actually. I've heard some people write in one voice for the whole story and then go back and write in the other voice, but I really enjoyed switching between the two, because I had such a strong idea of those characters in my mind, and I was really oscillating between their positions. I could, because I was living them for all of that time, and I was really in their head, and I really felt that they were both doing what they thought was right for their sons. So I actually enjoyed it. I enjoyed the variety. So it was almost like writing two stories and then joining them together. But it was also, an interesting challenge, because they were coming up into the same situations from completely different angles, and I enjoyed their different life stories and their different backgrounds. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed that. Thanks, Rosie. Sue, I tried to purchase your book today but couldn't find it. It has been released. I've seen it. People have been posting photos from all over the place. So definitely in Sydney. I'm not sure where you are, Sue. You can definitely get it online. If you go on to Better Reading, I think, has links to places you can get it. So you can definitely order it online, but you definitely can also get it in bookshops. I know in Brisbane it's all over the place. Sydney, yeah, it's out at Big W. You can actually get it at Kmart and Target, so as well as all the big bookshops. So hopefully you can find it. You might be, if you want to drop me a note, I can, and tell me where you are, then I might be able to help, or someone might be able to help you. What do I enjoy reading? I enjoy reading contemporary fiction really is what I tend to read. I do enjoy the odd crime novel, and I'm also excited about reading Alison Reynolds' new book that's coming up as well, which is a romance and sounds like it's really fun. So I like a story that has some fun in it as well, so some humour. But I guess stories about women, interesting places and interesting dilemmas, things that I enjoy, but definitely contemporary, I think. But I also, occasionally read historical sort of stuff. But I did the course that I did, there was 10 people on the course. I think there was probably only a few of us writing contemporary stories, and the others were writing stories set in 15th century Florence and 17th century Scotland and 50s Scotland, and I just thought I felt like I was cheating by writing a story about a contemporary story about mothers about my age who had sons a bit like mine. So um, I felt like it was a bit, it felt a tiny bit lazy, but I thought, oh, why are they setting themselves a really, really difficult task when they just could be writing something about their own lives? But anyway, that was their joy. They loved historical fiction, so I guess that's why they wanted to write it. Yes, Big W is a good place. Melissa, it sounds interesting. Excellent. Yes, I think you'd enjoy that. I think you'll enjoy the book. Um, Carly is in Adelaide and saw it in Big W. So yes, it is pretty much anywhere um, in the big stores as well as the all of the bookshops. So hopefully you can find it. So, if there's no more questions there, I might just share a few other things about my story that I thought might be interesting. I'm just wondering how many of you are writers. Is anyone out there a writer, aspiring writer, doing a few courses or anything like that? Well, there often um, are people kind of online who are doing some writing of their own. So I thought I might share a couple of tips for writers because I have been asked about that by in a few podcasts. So I think the first thing I would say if you're writing a story is fine tune your premise. So if you can sum up your story in just a couple of lines, I think it makes it so much easier to write because you know exactly what you're trying to achieve. And this is commercial fiction, not literary fiction, which is completely different. Um, but if you can sum it up really succinctly, it also makes it much easier to sell your story, to pitch it to a publisher, and to get them really engaged with the story. So that makes it a lot easier. Let the story germinate for quite a while before you get started and finish your work. I know people who are great writers, but they've never finished their stories. So you're never going to get a publishing contract if you don't finish. And the other thing is back yourself. You have to be your biggest advocate. So you have to really get behind yourself and push yourself out there. And I know that's kind of tricky for some writers because they like to be on their own and kind of just getting on with their work, and they don't realize they've got to push themselves out there all the time. Luckily for me, I have a background in television news, and I've worked and I've done kids fiction, which is all about getting out into schools and talking to kids. So it makes it a lot easier, but you do have to back yourself. Kylie, how long have I been writing? I have been writing. I was a journalist, TV journalist, my early career, and then I started writing kids fiction my first book was published in 2010. So I have been writing for quite a long time. So I've had lots of practice. What inspired me to start writing? Well, I started writing my first book series for kids because my two sons we'd not long moved from England, and the boys we were all on holidays on the Noosa River, and the boys were having adventures, discovering sandbanks, building camps in the bush, and just having lots of fun. The kind of things that I used to do as a kid. And I just thought, I have to write about this. This is a great adventure series in the making. And I just kept going until I found a publisher. And so that's where I started with the kids fiction. Jessica's doing a writing course. So that's excellent. That's excellent. A writing course is also a very good way to improve your writing, and then just get into it and do lots of writing. So definitely, you'll get a lot out of that writing course. And your tutors are great people to give you advice, but don't take advice from everybody because not everyone knows as much as you do. So just back yourself again in that case. So good luck with that. Wendy, looking forward to reading it. It's so topical, and it is. So very, very excited to see it out in the world because it is something that I think is important, and hopefully everyone will connect with it and also enjoy it. So I think our time is kind of up, although no one's told me to. Dex hasn't been on to tell me that I'm finishing up, so I might just tell you one tiny last thing. I found my first book publisher um, at a book launch. So that's a good place. I think face-to-face contact is really, really important. I know it's kind of changed with COVID times and we're all online and kind of pitching on the screen. But if you can get in front of someone and actually tell them your story, I think it's a really good way to engage and kind of make that connection. I think that's really important. And it's like anything else, publishing industry is all about making those connections and making those relationships, because hopefully it's not just one book you're going to be writing. You're going to be writing several books, so you want to have a good connection. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy One Punch. It's a great story for parents, and I really hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much for joining me, and thanks for all your great questions. I've really enjoyed being on here tonight, and hopefully see you again sometime.